Hi guys, welcome to today's podcast of YarninBlak. Today I've got a great friend of mine on Purpz. I'll introduce you to him in a second. But first I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I'm currently calling in from. I'm here in Balwyn Q on the land of the Wurundjeri people. I'd like to pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging. I'd like to acknowledge any other Aboriginal people that are here today. I also want to introduce you to Purpz. Purpz, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm so glad you could join us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, so I'll throw straight over to you. Tell us who you're from.
Yep. So my name's Purple. I am a Wangaaypuwan woman from the Ngiyampaa Nation in central west New South Wales. Um, I was born on Wiradjuri country, but raised on uh, the lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people. Um, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, cool. So, you did you go to school in New South Wales?
No. My parents moved us down when I was about 6 months old. So born up there, but Melbourneite for my entire life, pretty much.
So, I'll ask you a couple of questions. When you were growing up at
Yep.
school, did you learn anything about Aboriginal people at school?
Um, so I kind of will separate my schooling into two distinct sections. The first half was mainstream schooling, and the answer is not at all. Um, from about year eight, I went to Code, which is Koori Open Door Education in Glenroy. Unfortunately, not there anymore. But the curriculum was based around um, Aboriginal cultural protocols and helping ensure that we were connected. So after year eight, 100%.
You know, remember what year that closed? Code?
Um, I'm not actually 100% sure. I finished school at the end of 99,
Yeah.
and I think it was a couple of years after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like to see a code or an equivalent code come back?
I think it would be great if there was, an education system more catered towards Aboriginal children and helping keep them connected. Um, for me personally, it really helped to solidify my pride in my culture and my love for my people. And I think that that's something that every kid could use, really.
Yeah. So after school, what was your first job? What did you do?
I went to uni straight out of school. So I studied teaching. I
Yeah.
didn't end up going through with that. I did have some mental health struggles. So that ended up being put on the back burner for quite a while. Um, but I somehow found myself working in debt collection, which
Okay.
is soul destroying for someone like me. It's a horrible
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah. So I know that you foster kids. Yeah. How
Yep.
did you get into that? How did you get into that?
Um, so when I was a child, my family did respite foster care. And I met some of my best childhood friends through foster care. Um,
Yeah.
and then I think just as I got older, some of the kids that I grew up around, knowing some of the struggles that were going on in their lives and situations they were finding themselves in, I kind of just always wanted to be the kind of adult that a kid needs. Um,
Yeah.
and when I met my wife, she had a similar kind of situation in her childhood where her family did some foster care. Um, and so we both just kind of talked about that for a little while and decided to go ahead with it. And yeah, full steam ahead since.
How long ago was that? Tell us about the first kid that came to you. How long ago was that?
Yeah, so we got accredited and started caring in September of just last
Yeah,
year. So we're
yeah,
only about, I think, 7 months in. Um,
yeah.
and we just welcomed child number 9 last night. Um, our first placement was beautiful little boy. He was 9 weeks old when he arrived. And we were blessed to look after him and love on him for about 5 months before he left our care again. Um, he just kind of taught us a heck of a lot. um,
Yeah,
yeah, in terms of caring for babies, we're both aunties, so we've done the auntie thing, but to actually have 24/7 care of a child was really mind blowing. Especially in the beginning, it kind of felt like who decided it was a good idea to let us look after these precious children. um, but yeah, it also just
what?
really reinforced that we are 100% all in, that we really want to make a
Yeah,
good difference in these kids' lives.
yeah. What's the accreditation process like to become a carer? What do you have to go through?
Yeah, so we are with VACA, so Victorian Aboriginal Childcare Agency, although I think they might be community care agency now. But obviously their focus is Aboriginal children. Um, we did training for it was a while ago. We started during COVID, but then kind of put a pin in it for a while before we finished off. So I think it was about 6 weeks worth of training, um, which was all Zoom based. And
Yeah,
then after that, there was, I can't even remember how many. I think we were probably getting up, maybe 10 interviews, um, which kind of delve really deep into our histories and seeing what kind of traumas we might have and ensuring that we're healed enough to be responsible for children who are actively in that trauma. Um, and then, yeah, generally, once they'll present you to the panel, and if the panel's happy, then you'll go on to probation, which is usually 3 respite placements, and then they'll put you back before the panel and it's approved or whatnot.
yeah.
But because of this,
Probation doesn't sound probation doesn't sound good.
no, I think it's,
Uh,
yeah, just making sure that we're a good fit for these kids, that we are certain that we still want to be doing this, because it's a lot. Um, yeah, but our
so
first
many.
little guy, he was our probation because we just kind of got thrown into the deep end, and yeah.
Is it hard giving them back?
Yes, yeah. Um, Obviously, I don't think that you can properly care for a child if you don't love them. Um,
Yeah,
and, having that first little guy for 5 months, it was an absolute heartbreak the day we had to say goodbye. But
yeah,
we do it because, he went to live with his siblings. And I have family members who were stolen gen. And part of the reason we chose VACA was to try and help stop that happening to future generations as much as we possibly can. And so, even though we were head over heels in love with that little boy and would have been, more than happy to have him with us forever, he belonged with them. And we were happy that he gets to be raised with his family. Um, so, yes, it hurts, but it's worth it because our pain means that something good is happening for him.
yeah. If someone said to you, "Look, I'm interested in fostering. What would I need to do, or what attributes should I have?" What would you tell them?
Um, you need to be incredibly patient and understanding, especially the older kids. They are going to challenge you every step of the way. You need to have done quite a bit of work on healing your own traumas. Especially, I think, if you have anything, drug or alcohol kind of situations in your family background, because you're going to be triggered otherwise. And you just need to kind of be able to remember why you're doing this in the first place. Because you're going to have days where you just throw your hands up in the air and go, this is way, way too much. But if you can pull yourself back to remembering why you're doing it in the first place, kind of get over those speed bumps.
Now, in community, we hear words like cultural safety thrown around a lot. What makes you feel culturally safe about going to a health service or an organisation for the first time?
I think seeing Aboriginal people there. It's all well and good to have Aboriginal artwork on the walls and to say that somewhere is culturally safe. But when I see Aboriginal people using that service or working in that service, that makes me feel safe. Yeah, community, really. Are they using it? Do they trust it?
Yeah. I think there's still a lack of trust of Aboriginal people going to services.
I can really only speak for myself, and obviously I'm quite light-skinned and don't have a lot of features, so I can fly under the radar pretty easily if I chose to, which I don't. I think I owe that to my grandfather and my ancestors. They couldn't fly under the radar, so I shouldn't be taking that easy road when they had no choice. So, if I walk into a mainstream service, no one's going to treat me any differently because I look like pretty much everyone else in that space. But I have been with friends and family who are more obviously Aboriginal, and they do get treated differently. And so I can completely understand and do believe that, there's a distrust of other kinds of services. There's just that comfort in Aboriginal services.
What are some major issues you think Aboriginal young people are facing today?
Oh God, there's so much. Obviously social media and its just invasive presence in every aspect of life. And kids are just getting hooked into that so young. There's growing up in a country that doesn't feel like it likes you most of the time. You hear all these conversations about what's wrong with our people and just all this negative talk all the time. And I think kids don't necessarily have the skills to understand that just because somebody says it doesn't mean that that's the truth. I think a lot of kids kind of feel a bit lost and like maybe they are those things. Racism in Australia is disgusting. It's as rampant as it's ever been.
Do you think we're becoming a country more racist?
I'm sorry?
I said, do you think we're going into a country now that is becoming more racist or it's more open?
I don't think it's ever been less racist. I think from the moment that, Hook landed, it's been the way it is. I think the situation in the US has just emboldened a lot of racist people to be more open with those beliefs. They're just, dropping their masks a little bit.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
Oh gosh, probably at this rate, like 100 kids under our belt.
Yeah,
um, Hopefully not. Hopefully there comes a day where we're not needed anymore. Um,
yeah.
but honestly, I would like to think that we're still providing a home, whether short term or long term, for kids who need us, and um, yeah, just helping nurture the next generation. That's pretty much all I want to be doing with my life, really, is helping these kids out.
Do you, yeah, do you think people realise how the high rate of Aboriginal kids in care actually is?
I don't think so. We've had a few conversations with people, and just explaining to them that we can get phone calls every other day, just about, asking if we can take a placement. Um, and we're only one set of carers. So,
Yeah.
presumably they're all getting, all the other carers are getting the same calls. Um, and we know of situations where if a carer can't be found, kids are having to be put up in motels. There's just too many kids who need help and nowhere near enough carers, and especially not enough Aboriginal carers.
For many people, they might find it really difficult to be a foster carer. What's the feedback that you get when you tell people that you're a foster carer?
We get kind of put on a pedestal in a way, which is really uncomfortable. So many people will say to us that they couldn't do it themselves. Um, it's too hard. They wouldn't like giving the kids back, or um, just too hard, or there's this perception that the kids are all damaged. And I want people to know that these are little humans. They're
Yeah.
not objects. They're not something we get to keep because they're cute. They belong to someone's family. Um, and yeah, I think just don't think about yourself. Think about that child. Yeah, it hurts giving them back, but look at what you're doing. Look at what you're giving to that child. Um,
Yeah.
and if you have the space and the time and the capacity, foster. We need people.
I know you mentioned before that it'd be great that the job wasn't needed anymore.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have high rates of kids in out of home care, and you mentioned the ones that kind of slip through the system as well.
Yeah.
Do you think that we're doing well? Obviously, we're not doing really well, if that makes sense. The child protection
Yeah.
system in general.
Yeah.
So I think we can both admit that straight up.
Yes.
What's something you'd like to see changed in the child protection system?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I think it's not very personal. I think the people who work in child protection absolutely care, but I think the system as a whole, it's a set of rules and regulations. It doesn't take individual children and their needs and their situations into account. Um, we need to be doing that more. It's not one size fits all. Every single child needs an individual plan. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and they need more money to be able to effectively deal with all of these cases.
Now, every kid needs a cultural plan as well.
Yes.
So, how effective or how well structured are those cultural plans in your experience?
I personally am still learning about them. So that's a bit of a hard question for me to answer. I think they're only as good as the carer. and their desire to keep that child connected.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just a bit of paper, really.
Now, if a kid came up to you and said, "Oh, I just found out I'm Aboriginal, but I want to know more. Where can I start? What advice would you give that young person?"
Um, Community, connect to your local community. Um, find out as much of you as you can about your family history. Get some names, some places. Find out where your people have come from, and then meet the community and just start talking to everybody, and people will know someone you can talk to or point you in the right direction. But community is the key. You can't do any of it without community. They hold all the knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. Question for you. We hear reconciliation thrown around a lot as a word. What
Yep.
does reconciliation mean to you?
It's a bit of a buzzword these days. I think, there is that view that reconciliation means to reconcile after, like there was ever conciliation in the first place. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, we need acknowledgement and acceptance to be able to move forward. You can't really reconcile when, yeah, there hasn't been a friendship there to begin with.
Yeah. Do you think one day the country will be reconciled?
I hope so. I think we definitely take steps forward.
Yeah.
It's a much different world today than it was, when I was a kid. Um, but it's back and forth, and it's always going to be that way. I think it's human nature, unfortunately, and we will make gains and then there'll be losses and we'll just make some more gains. It's just, I think that's just the way it's always going to be. The best we can do
Yeah.
is hang tight to each other and get through it.
I think for me, sometimes it's like we take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And then sometimes it could be 3 steps forward, but then 2 steps back. But the
Yeah,
reality is we're only making 1 step.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. It's it's hectic, but I'm kind of heartened by seeing there's a more public, like a visual element of seeing people who are wearing always was, always will be t-shirts, non-Aboriginal people wearing Aboriginal artworks and getting involved in campaigns. I think there's definitely a good body of people out there who do support, and they're more and more willing every day to put themselves on the line to help move us forward and have some real kind of cohesion in this country. Um,
Yeah.
so they give me hope, even when everything else feels horrible. I'll see some random person from another culture wearing, a Clothing the Gaps t-shirt or something like that. And it just makes me feel good and know that there are people who care.
Yeah. I got my final question, and that is, what would you like people to walk away with from our yarn this morning?
Um, our kids matter and our kids deserve a chance at normal childhoods and good educations and, just to be loved and to maybe consider whether or not they might have room in their hearts to give a kid a soft place to land for a little while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, I want to say thank you. You know how much I love the work that you do.
Thank
And
you.
I just want to say thank you for joining me on today. I know last night you actually got a phone call to go, can you get another kid arrive? And it
Yep.
was like, uh, so I know that you've got a household full of people to actually go and look after.
Yep.
So I will say thank you very much for joining us. And guys, I'll see you at the next podcast. Thanks, Purpz.
Thanks. Bye.